Come on, we are live. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show, and tonight I have Matt Looney of Aston Carter, all the way out in Florida. How you doing, Matt?
Dave, always good to be on your show. Good to see you. Excited about tonight's topic.
We're going to be talking about some great things. Me and Matt were talking about the pain of being short-staffed and also not hiring the right staff. So everybody knows the drill. We'll be right back after this video. Well, I have to admit, sir, this is a different time slot than I think we're both used to. 6 o'clock.
Yeah, a little bit earlier. Maybe get a little bit of a crowd here today.
Yeah, not 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock. Hey, listen, everybody. I had the first couple announcements real quick. I wanted to bring up part of the Ring of Hire show that I love to do is please, if you know anybody that's looking for work and they're struggling, just can't find something in a different state, reach out to me. I love having candidates and doing a live interview. I mean, you've seen it, Matt. It's great.
Yeah, and it's like you're pre-qualifying the candidates for the company.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost them nothing. I'm just putting that candidate up there, and we get to know each other like this. And I always say it takes one manager. That's it, one to see on LinkedIn. And if you offer any type of value for staffing, software, new software, anything, reach out to me, PM, and we'll go from there. We have Munster job boards next week. Again, we're going to be talking about the military.com. Matt, I wanted to talk to you about being on that. It's going to be a great show. They do a lot of great things for veterans, and Melissa's going to be talking about it. And also we got a PloyNet coming up. But, well, let's get off to the show. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself first real quick, and then we'll go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Lunny. I work for Aston Carter. I specialize in recruiting accounting and finance professionals. I sit out of Jacksonville, Florida. Our team supports all of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. So if you are accounting and finance professional looking for a new role, definitely reach out. We are a nationwide organization also. So if I'm not the person to get a hold of, I can find you the right guy.
That's the best part. Matt, when we were talking about that, when you said about the subject tonight, you brought up that you wanted to do pain of being short-staffed and not hiring the right staff. I'm going to go back and forth here. And one of the things that came up to me about pain of being short-staffed, and it can be caused because of the company, is because we've always talked about choosing candidates, resumes. They're half qualified. Are you being too picky? Are you overlooking someone? Do you feel that has a lot to do with it on some part?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know my last video was about that. Is sometimes people are being too picky, but also there's soft skills that are transferable from one job to another. And so some people also do get overlooked. So I think it's a two-sided coin when it comes to that. I mean, you definitely want to be picky and almost hire for the right attitude. And then if it's a trainable skill set, then train them on it. If it's not a trainable skill set and they need a specific thing, then make sure you hire right the first time just to save yourself time and energy.
I've been in some interviews, and you've done thousands of them also, sometimes you can find that right candidate with that attitude. When somebody says, well, what do you mean hire by attitude? Is if you have a, reasonable resume and you quick look over the skills of let's just say a customer service, and listen, customer service in the hospitality industry, they rank really high.
Yeah.
They rank Tesla. When I was hiring for them, they told me that the bartenders, waitresses, people at stores make better employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend that recruits out of Texas right now, and one of his posts is like, "Hey, we're looking for new recruiters. Do you have a background in hospitality? We'd love to talk to you."
because that attitude that you picture yourself. And when I've done some, I'm like, wow, I bet she could really represent the company well. She's really talkative. Her body language, the way she sits, the way she talks, the way she looks at the camera, or doing a video, and then her skills. I think you really can lean towards that way.
Oh, absolutely. Because most of them are used to doing in front of people. A lot of those customer service roles, you're just on the phone with somebody or on a IM chat these days. So they have on the fly skills of being able to handle that when somebody's right in your face, upset about something, and that you have to handle right at that moment. And not only do you have to be professional with what you say, but also your body language and everything, because people read that.
They do. And the way people listen, resume. I mean, when people come in office, first impressions to me mean a lot. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Yeah.
First impressions. I believe in, when you see a person, you could really get a good vibe off the person. If you're going to an interview and, you're in your pajamas, let's face it, that might not be so good. I think you said that one time about going you're coming in your pajamas. Come on.
Yeah.
Think about it.
But one of my videos is tips on, interviews that are virtual. There's still an interview,
Oh, that's what you were talking about. That's it. Yeah,
Yep.
you were talking about that.
Yeah.
I
want to circle back for 1 second though about skills and looking at a resume. I actually had a candidate that a company passed on. Gentleman has a master's degree in accounting. Worked his way up from a staff accountant, senior accountant, accounting manager.
Right.
Well, he wanted to challenge himself with something new and went out and got his Series 6 and 6.3. Took about 3 months off, studied for the test, aced both of them, which are not easy.
Right.
And did not realize that financial advising is sales, and it's not really true advising. And it's not, there's an advisory effect to it, but he thought he'd be more number crunching and doing analytics on the role and not so much sales. So he wanted to go back to accounting. And the company passed on him because he wanted to challenge himself, succeeded with what he wanted to challenge himself with, and then came back to another role. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, sometimes you got to talk to the person and get that story painted for you, not just what the paper says. Because if you have a degree, especially in my world, master's degree in accounting or finance or, business admin, it's definitely, you definitely put your time in.
Yeah. I can imagine when we've always talked about degree versus experience, that's where that leads that into is, some people say, well, we shouldn't have to have a degree. Well, some things you need a degree in. Come on.
Or certificate.
You're not, certificate. You're not going to an accounting with just right out of high school. You got to have something, that you've been to. But it all depends on, like you said, it could be transferred over.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
I've seen people also, work their way up and, start with an entry level role doing, general ledger stuff with accounts payable, accounts receivable, then learning. But that generally will take you a little bit of time to get up to that next level than actually going to school to learn the technical degrees.
I think that's the best part is while you're interviewing like that, if you got that going on in the back of your head, like, wow, as that person's talking, I'm like, you know what? I bet she or he would be a fit before they're even talking. I'm already thinking something ahead, and I think that's normal.
Yeah, for sure. And I always love to tell people, because they'll sit there and tell me like, well, didn't you get my resume? I'm like, yeah, but I want to hear it from you,
Right. And that's exactly. The next one that came up was, it was, I thought about it is listen, we're not reinventing the wheel. When we talk about the same subject on LinkedIn, you see a lot of stuff. It's the same stuff over and over and over. I will say though, on LinkedIn, take this off a second, is so many people are finding jobs because every night, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. What the heck? I
can't
get anything in. Well, I guess so. But the recruiting styles, and I broke that down to where, first of all, we talked about communication is always number one going through the hiring process. You will win. And I had it happen. I never had somebody follow up after every interview. How'd it go, David? How'd it go? Robert Half did it. They were getting a job for me. They followed it through to the end. It was like you didn't go a day without hearing from them. And that felt good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you see that.
For sure. Absolutely. We definitely see that. Actually, one of my last candidates I talked to today, the role got filled, before they got an interview. And that was my last call, was like, hey, that role got filled. We always get new openings. As soon as I have something else, I'll let you know. And I already, pre-screened you and qualified you. So all I have to do is basically send over a job description and, set up the interview.
Now, do you try to scale them over, upscale them, sell them too? Also, if you don't find a fit, take them somewhere else.
Absolutely. It all really depends on the skill sets and the market that we're in. But if I have a great candidate and I have a company that I'm working with, and I know the managers over there, even if there's not an opening at the time, I might, float over their resume and say, hey, take a look. This person's really good. Are you looking for somebody on your team? And
that's awesome. And when I even go back to the recruiting styles, is everything I was looking at, it came back to, we didn't reinvent the wheel here. Really great job descriptions. We've talked about that. A really well-defined. I'm tired. I guess I see the same stuff over and over. I don't even read half of it sometimes, and I wish I did. To really sit down and what is a good job description? Where do you go to find out what is a good job description? You know what I mean? Who said it's a good job description?
So it's funny you say that. One of my partners in the Atlanta market posted a survey on LinkedIn about a week and a half ago. And it was like, as a hiring manager, do you A, have control of your job description? B, comes from corporate. C, it's a collection of both. And then D is like, what the heck's a job description?
That's what I mean. And I always want to give some answers. I like how we talk once in a while. You talk about, you can do all this you want, but you got to come up with solutions. I mean, everybody can complain what they want, but what would be a solution? And I'd have to really do some research on that, is what would be a good solution to fix that? Is there a company that specializes what it is? I guess there's no really right answer to it, but I think as long as you cover it, and I guess when I'm tired of hearing the same Excel, Microsoft Word, it's the same. All right, that was my whine on that part, but that's the only thing I wish, unless you really need to use it every single day, that's just me.
Yeah.
Utilizing on that. So, but we talked about having them put in a salary or hourly on a job description. That's always goes back and forth. People, you can put that on LinkedIn all day, and people are going to say yes right away. They should be, and I don't know.
Well, and it's funny, and we might have talked about it, I think, on our first show. When we get jobs, especially if they're government subcontract job, they go for the average median of pay of the area. So if we're posting a fully remote job and they can sit anywhere in the U.S. for that role, the contract has to be like, hey, it has to be the average median pay for that role specifically. So if somebody from Florida calls up for that role, it might be $22. If somebody from California calls up, it might be $31. So
I got to give that
kind
credit.
of another reason, with certain things. Like now, if it's a specific role, like, hey, we're in office, you have to be here in Jacksonville, and I'm a proponent of pay somebody the higher rate. If your price range is 75 to 80, give them the 80, make them happy, lock them down. I mean, and you're going to have a happier employee.
And that's why you're going to be short-staffed if you don't.
Yeah.
For all these, everything that we just talked about, if you take too long on that degree versus experience, you're going to lose them. They're gone. Even half qualified, not qualified, you could train somebody, they're gone if you don't really react fast. And I don't mean like next day, but you got to have your whole team. If you really had a vision or how you wanted to put out that hiring process, like customer service, does it really take 5 days? Does it, you interview 3 or 4 people? That's what I mean. And boom.
Yeah. Are you reading my bullet points or?
No, is that what it is?
Mine is like, it's actually going towards the bottom of my notes of like how to fix it. And it's like, hey, first off, build a plan. How many people do you need? If you're not sure, work with a consultant. Set time aside to interview. Don't say, hey, we need people. And then when people apply, if you're doing 2 rounds of interviews and the first one's on Teams, second one's in person, make sure you say, hey, I'm available Thursday for a half-hour Teams interview, anywhere from 2 to 5 o'clock.
Right.
And then the following week in person, we're available Monday and Tuesday in office from 10 to noon, whenever they can fit in their schedule. But have that time set aside. Have a plan. I know I'm probably going to mess up the saying, but it's like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
No, that makes total sense. And like you said, if you don't, there's no difference. And that's where your team comes in, because for being short staffed, I mean, your team should have some say in it.
Yeah.
It has to be a team effort anymore. I don't care if you don't know the word teamwork, what that means anymore. And if you can't work with the person next to you or across from you because you don't like the way they talk, you don't like the way they take their lunch and chew their food, you don't like this about them, you're a team, and you got to come up with that. Like, what is it? What do you want? Who do you want? What kind of person do you want? And I think once everybody hears that, like, even to sell a client to be short staffed, like, well, who are you looking for? What is your points you're looking for, like in a candidate, to try to get it from the client, besides just saying, if they're saying we need an accountant. But I'm sure, listen, accounting to me is kind of probably boring. Probably I wouldn't know one thing about it, but there's got to be ways of what a client tells you what they need.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. You can have the type of accountant that runs numbers all day, and that's all they do is punch numbers, and they hand you a report at the end of the day and say, this is what they are.
Right.
Then you also have some roles that are more analytical on the finance side of it. And not only do they want you to run numbers, they want you to give ideas of how to better the numbers. So,
right.
It all depends on exactly, and then when you get to big corporations, I mean, it breaks it down to, teams of hundreds of accountants, some might, there's lease accountants literally that work for companies. Just say McDonald's, for a huge corporation, they own X amount of properties and they're all leased. You might have 20 accountants that just work on the leases for them.
Just for that.
But they will let us know exactly what they're looking for, and, what is a hard requirement and what's a soft requirement.
And that makes sense, because a lot of the times that all falls into, how does it affect your staff? Everybody gets burned out. Let's face it. That is one of the big things. People would burn out. And we talk about burnout, but what do you do for it? Well, there's things that you can do for burnout. There's things that you can come up with as a team to say, you might be short-staffed, but I like how you said it, and it's not hard. You have a plan. It's just like your action plan for when you're going into peak seasons. I'm sure you go into peak season right now. I'm sure you're probably in demand as anything right now for tax season, but it starts to slow down. So we were always 3 months before we knew peak season was coming. We already had a plan, what date, what this had to be, what we needed. And it's kind of funny, but when you follow it, it kind of makes your life a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. Now it's funny you said the burnout. One of the things that I put on there is, when you're short staff, and, obviously everybody gets paid overtime for, that's on an hourly type position for their time, but, compensate them in another way also. Whether it's a bonus card or something like, hey, I know last week you worked 55 hours because we were short staffed. This week it's probably going to be 50, but once we get these people in here and train, I'm going to give you, 2 extra paid days off, and not just say it, follow through with it, because that'll keep your staff that's there, because you don't want to lose them because you've burnt them out and then given them empty promises left and right.
And that's perfect, because when you say somebody, listen, you could leave early or you can have off, and the other teams come up, they'll fill your spot to step up, or the gift cards, those gift cards are nice. A lot of people, hey, $50 gift card, take your family out. Well, you might need a little bit more now than 50, but still,
yeah,
it's the idea. And we used to, when we were in the peak, because of everybody, it only affects, and Matt, you got to agree, it affects your family. It affects the person. A lot of people don't, there's a lot going on. Listen, you don't know what's going on in that employee's life right now. You don't. So, that candidate might have a lot of stress going home, problems at home. Now he's working later, he or she. Wow. If it was on a day that you could sit there and know your team, what's wrong? You got to have that communication. What do you need? Maybe this
Yeah.
person needs to leave early. That little bit of thing right there that you just said, you give that employee, it's going to come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I also put out with the burnout, not necessarily in my world as much, it's more mental burnout.
Yeah.
But if you're working at, you staff for the airport or,
Yep.
whether it's a factory or a plant, is injuries, man. People being tired, careless. And I mean, what does that cost your company at the end of the day?
It does. And hey, we got somebody up here. Hey, David, welcome
Dave.
to the show. Oh, you know Dave?
Yeah.
All right. You want to take it off? Read it?
On topic of rewarding someone with time off, it's important to make it mandatory when giving the option to take folks. Feel uncomfortable doing so. Yeah, absolutely. I should have probably read the rest of it out loud, but that's a great point there, Dave, is make it mandatory. Be like, hey man, you did this for me, and I know I'm not just saying it. I'm gonna give you this Thursday and Friday off and take it to yourself and enjoy yourself.
It's not always
That's a
about
great
the
point,
money.
Dave.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not always about the money, the card, 4 hours off, go home early. That's nothing. You're not even touching the it's such a great idea because the person, it's not affecting anybody.
Well, it's a lot of times at the end of the day, it's the little things that you do for people
Yeah.
that make a big impact, and as long as they're genuine when you do it, not just like, off cuff,
And I still believe that's when you're in your meetings and you're doing your planning. You're planning for your short staff. Is if everybody knew these things going in, if everybody knew like, hey, we're short staffed, we need these people, we're going to have to do this. We're going to get this if we can get this job done. Because you said it numerous times when accounting, listen, if that job's not complete for your customer, you're not only going to feel the heat, everybody's going to feel the heat. Everyone.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my points was missed deadlines, not getting the best quality of work, and then prioritizing assignments or clients. And it's at the end of the day, nobody wants to prioritize anybody over anybody. You want to give 100% to everything that you do
because it rolls down. Once it goes up top and that client gets irritated, you can do all you want, but then it comes down, and then guess what? You're going to feel double. Your team feels double the pressure because now not only have you not completed the task, but all these things we just talked about adds extra additional stress. You might have to say, well, guys, listen, girls, we got to work on Sunday now or Saturday.
Yeah.
How do we make that Saturday good for them? Stuff like that. But I like how you said it all comes down to planning, stress management, same thing. I think as a manager, it's going to be that person because you're always short staffed is you need that leader to keep it together. You need that one or two people, that backbone.
Yeah, absolutely.
To keep your team going, because if you don't, they'll fall apart. They'll stray.
Yeah. And, in this market, there's plenty of jobs out there. So you don't want to make your situation even worse by putting that added stress on your team.
And they're the kind of things of being short staffed that can take its tolls. And like you said, well, you're reading my notes too. I had some about their safety. But loss of sales, bonuses, it's a domino effect.
Absolutely.
So if you're short staffed and if you're not being aggressive, listen, I mean, there was some about high turnover. You're going to have high turnover if you're short staffed. I mean, when you weigh all that in, I wish we talk about it, but when you just add all them up, put them on a scale, like on this side over here, and for that one to get the job completed, wow, all that's missing, that's where it comes over. And the cost goes up, the bonuses go down, everything, let's see, what's this? Go Looney. Not sure he's hiding his name there as LinkedIn user. So
it's probably one of the people I work with.
Is it? Yeah, they're on there. So, but again, high turnover. So on that part, before we change gears here, is I agree. Action plan, teamwork, keeping that communications line open, and really, if you need short staffed, listen, there's other staffing agencies also. If you're one staffing company and you can't fill those jobs, that client has every right to go out and hire another one.
Absolutely.
I don't like it as like a threat. Some of the companies with me years ago would be like, we're just going to go with someone else. Oh, shoot. Woo.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's good to have options, And different companies have different styles. I
Yep.
don't remember the two young ladies that you did a show with.
Yep. Employer network.
And they're like, well, if we just get a random, application, we'll send it over to a company, which is
Yep.
good to an extent. But when you have companies that specialize in certain
Yeah.
fields, if you're running a commercial warehouse, but you also have a customer service team, an accounting team, you need an admin assistant, finding somebody that usually finds you warehouse workers or, production workers might not be the best company to turn to when you need, more of that different skill set.
That is definitely. The next part we were talking about it was funny because not hiring the right staff. So now you're talking about being all short staffed, and all the things that can happen. Now you're saying like, all right, we're hiring the wrong persons for the roles. And I Googled just like everybody else, and I was doing some reading, looking at books, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right. So you come up with the person's not qualified. I don't think you want to rush. I don't think you ever really want to rush when it comes to if you need a part of a team just to fill it.
No,
that can cause you more stress, I feel, than without having to, if it's someone that you have to really train. What do you want? I say, like, write it down what you want in a person. And then when you're going to the hiring manager and who you want to hire, that's what you got to look for. Those I will say keywords. You still have to look for keywords.
Yeah.
Where they've worked, what type of jobs. Yourself, if you've seen somebody that's worked at some high-end companies, you're pretty much knowing what kind of person they are, I would say.
Well, and kind of circling back to the whole, restaurant industry,
Right.
customer service. Somebody comes from Chick-fil-A, they probably had good people skill training.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is up in Pennsylvania, but
No, it's true.
90% of the Chick-fil-A's you go to down here in the South, man, they are super friendly all the time, and it's just
Happy.
good. Yeah, good base. Public supermarkets is another one. I should be getting paid for these plugs right now, but generally they hire for that positive attitude. So when somebody is going to try and go into a different field, especially if it is something like customer service, they already have that foundation. They already have that base behind them, because they wouldn't last at those companies very long. Because you could interview well, and then the first time somebody gets on the phone and is cussing at you about overdraft fee for a bank or whatever, and then you're like, you're not talking to me that way. If you have that kind of mentality, you don't last long at companies with good culture. So you can look at it and say, hey man, they were there for 3 years. They must have that, great skills.
That is true about Chick-fil-A. Every time we go there, they're happy. Their young kids are happy, and that makes total sense. And they're off on Sundays. I believe they're closed Sundays, right?
Closed Sundays.
Yeah, closed Sundays. Some of the stuff that I look for, if trying to find the right staff, is when I'm looking at the resume, if I see something that I could be weak on my part of team, that's kind of nice. Let's just say, my social media. Let's just say if I was looking for somebody with social media and I found that on a strong person because I needed it on the team and our team was weak. They're the kind of things that I look for of what my team needs. New ideas, or new skills, anything new. It's not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as you said that, I was thinking about the comment from our last show. The guy saying, when you said social media, I was like, maybe we just need to hire a TikTok person.
That's it.
Put out TikToks for us. But yeah, absolutely. It's like, you got to have those strengths and weaknesses in everybody, and have them complement each other. If somebody is really strong at one thing, let them shine there, and then you help them with whatever their weakness is. And it's kind of the best way to build a team.
Well, I get a lot of questions of I have a difference in opinion. Let's say this. When you're hiring for, let's just say, a supervisor's role, a lead position in logistics, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden you have a supervisor from another logistics center that was laid off or something, applied for the job. And some people will be like, why would you want to give them the chance? They want to be a lead again. And I'm like, why do you say it like that? They want to be a lead again. You know what it took to get to be a lead?
Yeah.
What it took, you got it, and then out of their control, they have lost their position. I'll tell you what, some people need to look at that stuff, because what he did or she for that position, they're going to do the same thing, because they're not just going to want to be the lead. They're going to build their way up, and they're going to bring the skill set that they did. Because, being a lead, getting to a supervisor, you got to be that Batman Robin. You got to have it.
Well, also a lot of it will just depend on the size of the company. For an example, in accounting and finance, I've talked to people that are title-wise are CFOs. Well, they're CFO for an electric company that does $2 million in sales. I'm working with a large bank that has a portfolio of $2 billion, and they're looking for just an accounting manager that has experience with $100 million portfolio. So titles are, one's accounting manager, and the progress, there's 3 or 4 steps before you could become a CFO, and another one's a CFO just for a small company. And in reality, they're doing every aspect of the accounting job, and they're the only accountant, but that's just their title. So
that's the titles.
A lot of times a lead can be just as important in one company as a supervisor is in another.
Yep. I always said, whenever I was supervisor, the lead, it's like turning a page. If something was to happen to me and I went on vacation for 2 weeks, I got injured a couple times, turn the page, guess what? Those people now are the supervisors. Nothing, it just continues on. And then when I left, they're both there still today. They're both there today at the same spot. So it's always good to look for people that want to learn and have some knowledge. It's not when I look at somebody that's overqualified, that word gets me. Overqualified. Listen, you can't judge people you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. And that comes into your hiring skills. I mean, your interview questions. That comes down to this is, I think the basic questions of job interviews, I think they need to just be revamped a little bit. Just a little. Not the basic ones. I know I'm going to go get some stuff on this, some messages from people, but it can be different. Not like, where are you going to be in 5 years? I'm sorry. They say you should ask, where are you going to... Listen,
I had somebody tell me that, because they're like, I know you're going to ask me this, and this is my 5-year plan. And I was like, that's a very, I want your 5-year plan to come out organically through conversation,
Right. Well, all right. I like that. All right.
But I had a gentleman that I was speaking to, and he's like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what my 5-year plan is, just because I know you're going to ask me. And I was like, I rarely do.
I guess goals, if you wouldn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's your 5-year goal? I'd be like, well, I mean, pay my bills and, but there's some questions that, I'm going to get it on either side. Listen, it comes down to where one of the things here was really talk to your team about some good interview questions, and I'll never forget. I always say Tesla, but Tesla taught me this when I recruit. You took the person's resume. I looked at it. They sat down. I said, okay, you gave me your resume. Okay. Threw it on the floor. I said, okay. I said, by the end of this time, this 30 minutes, I'm going to know everything about you. You're going to know everything about me within 30 minutes. Didn't care about the resume.
Yeah.
At first when I was doing it, but you know what? It was turned into like we're talking now. And before you knew where the person worked. You knew why they left. You knew their family. You knew where they went vacations, everything. You just knew about it because you were talking to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I feel, the best way to do it, because you learn more about a person, not just bullet points about their career.
And that's exactly. And all right. So you're coming up with some good ones tonight, man. Bullet points of their career. All right. So write that one down.
And a lot of it comes from experience. I've talked to people that are like, just want a job to take a job. And it's like, okay, well, you went to school for X. Why are you looking for an entry-level role at Y?
Right.
Well, yeah, I got to pay my bills right now. But I'm like, well, why don't you, let us find you something else? Or I understand bills are important to pay, and money's a struggle right now if you're not working.
Right.
But let us try and, there's a lot of options. You can Uber Eats for a couple weeks till you find that right job. You don't want to just jump into something that you're going to hate in 6 months, because you're going to be in the same situation.
I've had a lot of people
back to hiring the right people.
I've had a lot of people from the medical field coming over to the logistics side. Like, the
Yeah.
ones that work in the centers, they just want to come over. They want to try something different. And nobody really talks about COVID that much anymore. So that has nothing to do with it. Nobody really, I don't know. I don't hear
Well, I think
about it.
a lot of times too, especially, I'm not, bashing people with the
Yep.
CNAs.
Yep.
They're like, oh, I can go to an online class and get my CNA certificate, and don't realize that for the most part, that's not a high level medical job. Like, if
Yeah.
you want to be a true nurse, like, yes, get a job, but set goals, go to nursing school, go through the proper course, like if that's like your passion.
Yeah. And
But
you're
I've
going to have to.
I've talked to people that are like, "Oh no, I can make a ton of money as a CNA," and I'm like, "No, you can't."
No, they can't. No, that's you're not, it's just you got to love to do that job. You have to
Yeah,
love to do the job. They're very well underpaid. I will say that around here.
absolutely.
Uh, Underpaid, hard workers, hard,
Well,
hard.
no,
Woo!
I wouldn't do a lot of the stuff that they do. I'll be
No,
honest with you.
they do, and they
Well, and a
deserve a
lot of the
lot.
schools around here too, like they have like career paths where you can get your certificate that way. So
There is, and like you said, there's a lot of other, fields of study. Just not you don't have to go to college and go to degree trade schools.
yeah.
A lot of the trade schools and all that. I got one more on my part before we wrap it up, and I'll give you a chance here. Give you your chance. That sounds great. Um, I One of the things is I really believe the hiring manager, whoever you're allowing them to be in charge of being the hiring manager, I think it needs to come down to sometimes let the hiring manager make that decision. Sometimes I know you'll go through 3 or 4 interviews and then you won't be able to choose the person that you want. They're going to override you. Somebody overrides you because maybe one thing that they've liked. I just believe in whoever's your hiring manager should be your hiring manager. That's just me.
So, that is a great point. And I feel also if you're going to do multiple rounds of interviews,
Yep.
um, whoever has the final say, do the
Yeah.
first interview.
Correct.
Because I've worked on roles with our company where had people interview first round, hey, that went great. This person did really well. And
Right.
the manager that had the final say was like, well, I didn't like this. So I literally was like, hey, why don't we switch the process up? And he's like, well, my time is this, my time is that. And I was like, well, you still had 3 interviews and you didn't like any of those candidates. Why don't we just let you do it first and then save your other manager's time? And he was a senior manager. And
Huh.
then, at the end of the day, if they like him, you're going to interview him anyway. So if you just if you look at him, talk about him, interview him first, then you're saving your team time.
All right. I kind of like it.
If you're going to be the one with the final say, I mean, it's not always ideal,
No,
but
yeah.
in certain cases, especially with some more senior level roles, I feel it's a better way to approach it. If somebody's got the final say and has thrown the axe on multiple people, it's like, okay, then you do even, the initial screening of the person,
Because they only come up with the negative ones. They'll only come up with if you're not your real hiring manager, the other ones are just going to say, well, I didn't like this person because of this. I didn't like the person because of this. It was never, a lot of it's not like, oh, this was perfect. Like you said, it comes
I
down.
literally had somebody that interviewed for a role, and they were like, you realize the amount of money he's asking for is the same amount of money his manager would be making. And I was like, yes, but he has 15 years of experience at a similar company in a similar role.
Right.
He and your manager has been doing it for 7. So he knows his worth.
Right.
I was like, and that's not something that was discussed with that other manager anyway. He really liked him. He's like, well, I couldn't do that. And I was like, I get that part of it.
No.
But yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from with the hiring managers. It's like,
It is. It's tough because if I want to hire them, I want to be able to say, I mean, I'm the hiring manager,
So my last point that I have that we haven't really discussed is I don't want to call them quick fixes, but options that may make your job more attractive than other people when you're looking to hire somebody, especially in this age. Flexible schedules.
Big time.
I mean, I get if there's times if it's a customer service call center role and you need, an 8 to 5, 5 to, midnight, and then midnight to 7, 8 a.m. I get that coverage has to be there and somebody's going to have to fall in those things. But if you have a role where it's a senior accountant role, and as long as they get their work done, if it works better because they have children or other obligations in their personal life, where they do it from 7 to 4 with an hour lunch, or even if they, kind of work through lunch and 7 to 3, or hey, I dropped my daughter off at 8:45. I can't be in the office till 9:15, but on the flip side of it, they're going to be working later. And the other one is remote roles. If there's one thing the pandemic taught us is like people will figure out how to get the job done, and some people are more comfortable that way. And I mean, we've come across this a few times where it's like, hey, this isn't remote. And it's like, well, you did it for 2 years that way and you still have production. Why not? And
that's what I say.
A lot of people don't want to answer that question, but it's the way of the world.
I know. And I go back and forth on it. Then I keep saying, just like you said, everybody comes up with reasons why not now versus why when it was easy then. But I agree 100% with you on that one. And especially the 15, 20-minute thing, listen, a lot of the companies, you'll come up with some ideas and somebody will say, like your boss will say, no. Well, how the hell did you just know that within that first minute? The corporate's going to say no. Well, they always say no. Well, maybe you didn't sell it to them right. If, like you said, we had a person, her daughter had a disability, so had to take a bus at a certain time. I had to speak with that company, and it took me about 20 minutes to say, listen, it's a child with special needs. The bus comes at 9:15. Can they come at 9:30 versus 9 o'clock? Took a little bit, but we got it. And they're the kind of things right there, it was the special needs. The buses don't come. They come at different times. So as a company, those are the kind of things that people look for. Yeah. They'll stay that extra 20, 30, 40 minutes if they have to.
And they'll stay with the company because they're willing to work with you.
Yep. And they will. I guarantee it, because they're going to, I would remember it if it was for my daughter or son.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on, you're not 15, 20, 30 extra minutes. I'm going to do something on a weekend if I have to. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because they're doing something for me, and I feel like I'm doing something for them.
Yeah.
But Matt, I want to thank you again. It's always great, man. This is not too bad. 45 minutes. Not too bad. We were on an earlier slot tonight, so now we have a night off, you might as well say. But my one word when it comes down to everything, to improve on everything, is just communication.
Yeah.
Communication for me on both top subjects can go a long, long way. If you're short-staffed and you're feeling the pain of it and you're hiring the wrong people, communicate with everybody.
Absolutely. And especially if you're short-staffed, I mean, the staff knows it. Acknowledge them. Like I said, do something special for them. Let them know that they are a valued part of the team so that you don't lose them. And then you're even more short-staffed.
So, well, hopefully somebody learned something off it tonight, Matt. So
hope so.
We'll see. All right, we'll be back on again. We'll see everybody soon. And thanks everybody for watching, and have a great night. Here we go with a video.
Bye, guys.